Chapter 33. This is the truth of the cosmos. Editor *Henny Translations. Mr. Hengyu, may I address you as such? Tauda said smoothly. Since this guide voluntarily spoke, not responding would be unworthy of being an elite. And this time, the alien named Hengyu didn't remain silent. Yes. Though it was simply 2 words, it was enough to fill Tauda and Villard's hearts with joy. Being willing to talk to them, at least it's a kind of friendliness. Moreover, they urgently needed information about the spaceship. Mr. Hengyu, why are you all using the Eastern country language for communication? Villard asked, voicing his biggest doubt. If these aliens are using the Eastern country language for convenience in communication with them, there's no need for even their internal conversations to also use it. It's quite a good language, especially in terms of emotional expression. Hengyu continued leading the way. This explanation clearly didn't explain why they used the Eastern country language among themselves. But Tauda didn't ask further. Instead, he posed another important question. I noticed that on your ship, it's not just one race. This question, once asked, made Villard, who was about to continue questioning about the Eastern country language, shut his mouth. Because it's indeed an important question. It's about their origin. More importantly, it's about the possible existence of an interstellar society in the cosmos. The spaceship and the presence of these aliens have already presented a grand and mysterious extraterrestrial society in front of them. At this moment, what they care about most is not the already answered question of aliens exist, but what is the interstellar society like, which will decide humanity's future. Because Taudu and others are very clear. Whether humanity is willing or not, from this point on, they have already entered the interstellar society. Entered the starry era. The Wogd is not from a single racial civilization, but from a corporate civilization. Corporate civilization, Taudu and Villard glanced at each other. At this moment, they suddenly felt extremely fortunate that the aliens were using the Eastern country language. Otherwise, they wouldn't have grasped such crucial information through this simple communication. Even in the interstellar society, there are also corporations. And since it's a corporation, it's understandable why there are so many aliens from different races on the ship. They might be employees hired from different racial civilizations. Combined with Hengyu's earlier words to Priestley, and that "I'm back" message, a guess that made Tauda somewhat delighted appeared in his mind. Someone from Earth might be on this ship, and they might be from Eastern country. Maybe their status isn't low. Just as Tauda and Villard wanted to continue asking, Hengyu suddenly stopped. We're here. He turned and stepped aside. The captain is waiting for you. In front of them was a light gate. They were about to meet the actual ruler of this spaceship, perhaps even a representative of a corporate civilization. Whether it was Taudu or Villard, they straightened themselves, even signaling others to tidy themselves. Just before entering, Taudu seemed to suddenly remember something and solemnly said to Hengyu, "Humanity will always remember Mr. Hengyu's kindness to us, but could you please guide us before meeting your captain?" Upon hearing this, Villard's eyes lit up, praising Tauda. This question was asked brilliantly. Standing here, it could be interpreted as asking if there's anything to pay attention to when meeting the captain, but could also mean, is there anything to teach us natives when facing this cosmos? The former interpretation meant the question wouldn't seem presumptuous, but if answered as the latter, it might yield crucial information. It might even offer survival advice in this cosmos that has become utterly different. And Hengyu didn't remain silent. He seemed to ponder for a moment, then slowly said, "Humans have a saying, falling behind means getting beaten, and this is a cosmic truth." The moment these words were spoken, Tauda and Villard's hearts sank heavily. The trace of joy immediately disappeared. They indeed received the advice they wanted, but this advice seemed not so ideal. Falling behind means getting beaten. Undoubtedly, compared to these civilizations that have long ventured into the cosmos, humanity is exceedingly behind. In the end, Tauda slowly bowed to Hengyu. "Thank you for your guidance." Then he stepped forward, crossing the light gate. After a white stream of light passed before their eyes, their vision abruptly expanded. Although Tauda was prepared for various possible scenes to appear, he couldn't help but instinctively take a breath. One gasp after another followed from behind him. Every person who entered widened their eyes, their bodies trembling. No wonder they reacted this way. Because ahead of them wasn't something that could be described as a room, but a vast world. They stood on fine sand beneath a blue sky. As far as the eye could see was a vast ocean, and they could even hear the sound of waves rolling, with a sea breeze carrying a hint of salty moisture blowing towards them. They could even see seagulls circling the horizon with the naked eye. No matter how you looked at it, this was the seaside, a truly realistic seaside. Spatial teleportation, or three-dimensional projection. A scientist crouched tremblingly, picking up a handful of fine sand. The weight, the texture, everything here was incredibly real. "Let's go, mind your manners," Tauda said softly to those behind him, taking a deep breath before leading them towards the beach. There was already laid out a parasol and 2 beach chairs there, though they had guessed. But when Tauda and the others got closer, they still couldn't resist trembling, feeling that this was all so unbelievable. Because lying on the central beach chair was unmistakably a person. Yes, a person. Wearing sunglasses, a colorful beach shirt, revealing fair skin no matter how you looked, it was a human and Asian. This was the captain of the alien spaceship. At this point, if someone told them it was all just a dream, Tauda and the others might believe it. Some even pinched themselves hard. The pain told them it was all real. "Sit down, there's only one chair, the rest sit on the ground." Shen Shi removed the sunglasses, looking at them, speaking casually yet undeniable. Chapter 34, Eastern Country is my homeland. Editor * Henny Translations. There is only one chair. Tauda immediately realized and took the seat unhesitatingly, sitting sideways toward Shen Shi. However, he naturally could not lie down as freely as Shen Shi. Instead, he sat upright and instructed the others to sit on the beach. Villard and the Nia Empire representative, who didn't understand Eastern Country language, vaguely realized what this chair signified. Villard was particularly annoyed, but dared not show a bit. Could only sit down on the spot. Shen Shi's human appearance indeed gave them immense shock, yet they did not overly relax because of this. Everything they had witnessed just now had already brought great pressure to these people. As the first humans to board an alien spaceship and come into contact with aliens, they almost instinctively maintained a high degree of concentration. Shen Shi observed their reactions and nodded silently. People fear the unknown. In order to prevent these people from relaxing, belittling him, or even losing control due to greed after knowing his human identity, Shen Shi had made a lot of preparations. These aliens were all transformed by simulative transformational material. Each was an alien template recorded in the control program of the simulation transformational material, from shape to racial characteristics, all consistent with the real situation. This was an inspiration brought to him when he supported AI Zinner before. Since simulation transformational material could be used to transform into bodyguards and secretaries, forging the identity image of a super-rich second generation. Why couldn't it transform into aliens, forging an interstellar identity sufficient to awe the world and gain initiative in deep interaction? You must know, the same gun in the hands of an ordinary person, people might question its authenticity, but in the hands of police, it's entirely different. The same words, said by an ordinary person and by the richest man, hold entirely different weights. As for Shen Shi's past, that could be easily investigated on Blue Star. That's simpler. Shen Shi didn't feel assured about his family on Blue Star, and had already left behind a simulation human to replace his identity and live on Blue Star. Fair and reasonable. Even the high-profile display from more than 10 days ago doesn't need to be cared about at all, returning rich to one's hometown, flaunting a bit in front of a first love. As long as the identity is successfully forged, no one could imagine that he achieved this all in just over 10 days. What's more, both the information he commanded and the gun in his hand were exceedingly real. This was the greatest confidence. No need to guess I am human. Shen Shi felt relieved internally, but didn't show any change in demeanor, still speaking in a casual tone with no smile visible on his face. And this sentence immediately triggered some commotion. Even those who couldn't understand Eastern Country language received whispered explanations from those who could. The shock was almost indescribable. Even seeing Shen Shi's appearance, most of them were actually speculating whether this was a guise for communicating with them. After all, in comparison, the captain of an alien spaceship being human was far more unbelievable. But now, the other side admitted in person that he was indeed human. With due respect, Tao suppressed his inner excitement and cautiously asked, "Sir, are you from Eastern Country?" "That's right," Shen Shi nodded slightly. "Eastern Country is my hometown." It truly is so. The Eastern Country people in this team suddenly got excited. Chief Engineer Lu even fiercely clenched his fist. The captain of the alien spaceship is from Eastern Country. And those who were not from Eastern Country, even Villard couldn't help but show envy and jealousy toward Tao and the others. How could they not be jealous? Just because this man in front is from Eastern Country, every alien on the spaceship speaks Eastern Country language. This isn't the key part. The key is this visible, monumental interest enough to drive all of humanity mad. How much unimaginable technology have they witnessed and experienced on their way here? Leaking a bit is enough to completely change the world. The mere value of this ship is unimaginable. Not to mention, these may very well be just the tip of the iceberg. Only one thought lingered in Villard and the others' minds at this moment. Eastern Country might be about to conquer the world. No way. Villard gritted his teeth, showing the most genuine smile of his life, and praised Shen Shi in awkward Eastern Country language. "For sir to accomplish such feats, you've surpassed all great figures in history. You are the pride of all humanity. I can already imagine how many around the globe will go mad upon your return." A series of fervent praises, as if his brain wasn't being used, kept coming out. Even Tao couldn't help but secretly curse him for shamelessness. But as Tao also intended to say something flattering, he noticed that, despite Villard's continued compliments, the man in front showed no change in expression. Not even a flicker in his gaze. Extremely profound, heavy. It made his heart tremble instantly. Immediately realizing that even if this man in front really was human, he definitely couldn't be like normal people. To manage such a gigantic cosmic spaceship as a human, in the vast cosmos and boundless galaxy, overseeing so many aliens from different races, how could it be simple? This kind of flattery is probably meaningless. Tao's initial slight relaxation, upon knowing the captain in front was from Eastern Country, vanished instantly. Even more vital now. Villard also realized his words hadn't had the desired effect and secretly lamented, relying on his thick skin not to show any change, stopping as if nothing happened. Shen Shi watched their subtle reactions thoroughly and couldn't help but feel grateful internally. Everyone likes hearing good words, especially from such a foreign elite flattering him, boosting his mood. However, in dealing with these people, emotions definitely shouldn't be easily swayed by them. Mystique must be established. An emperor's difficulty lies here. Even with power and authority, every word and action is constantly scrutinized. If not smart enough, unable to handle the bigger picture, one could be exploited, balanced, or even controlled. Thanks to primordial energy. Shen Shi had countless thoughts, but with the help of primordial energy from the warship, none of it showed. He reached out, and a cup of iced lemon fruit tea appeared in his hand, still marked with clear frost. Actually, he took a sip of the fruit tea and said leisurely, "I originally had no intention of meeting you nor any plan to return, even creating a simulation human early on to replace my presence. For after all, the cosmos has its environment and rules which I have adapted to, while Blue Star has its rules. Returning here might not be beneficial for me, for you, or for Blue Star." Chapter 35, War is Coming. Editor *Henny Translations. When Shen Shi said this, a hint of desolation appeared in his gaze, just at the right moment. This was naturally deliberate. Under the embellishment of primordial energy, this hint of desolation was inevitably noticed by everyone. They could even imagine how arduous and dangerous it would be for a native from Blue Star in the cosmos. Moreover, those with more sensitive thoughts, such as Tao and Villard, could undoubtedly perceive a deeper meaning in Shen Shi's words. Indeed, his return might not be a good thing. As the other party said, the cosmos has its own rules. Maybe these rules are barbaric and cruel, possibly unscrupulous and wanton. Could such a person, returning to Blue Star with incredibly powerful technology or even force, still be restrained by Blue Star's laws and morals, rules and order? If someone foolishly offends him or even attacks him, what consequences would it bring? If he wants to rule the entire world, become an emperor, become a dictator, can anyone stop him? And the possible alien interest group behind him. These issues compel them to think carefully and pay attention. Because ever since this cosmic spacecraft appeared in the world, announcing the existence and might of alien civilizations. Humanity's destiny and future have already stood at a dividing line, on the verge of a deep abyss or soaring into the clouds, perhaps just a hair's breadth and a thought away. Perhaps Shen Shi's words were a reminder to them, a warning to them. Tao's heart grew increasingly cautious. The image of Shen Shi in his mind had changed again and again, not only with a mysterious background and experiences, powerful strength, but also a mysterious mind, impossible to fathom. However, he naturally would not reveal these concerns in such a situation. Because whether worried or not, this man had already arrived. "Sir, I have a different opinion on your statement." Tao cautiously chose his words, smiled, and said, "For Eastern country people, no matter how wonderful the outside world is, the homeland always holds special significance." Exactly. Villard's words were much more direct. Blue Star will always be your homeland forever. The closest connection they could establish with Shen Shi at this moment was through homeland and race. And this topic was precisely what Shen Shi needed. This time, he remained silent for a long time. Until Tao and others began to feel uneasy, he slowly said, "You're right. After all, this is my homeland, where my family and longing lie." Only then did Tao and the others feel relieved. But then they heard Shen Shi continue, "Therefore, I had to return, at the very least to take away the people I care about to escape from here." Suddenly, the atmosphere on the scene changed. Even those who couldn't understand the Eastern country language felt the shift in the atmosphere. They looked blankly at the Eastern country people around them, noticing their suddenly rigid expressions. In fact, even Tao's smile froze. He wondered if he had misheard. Did the other party really use the word escape just now? Escape from Blue Star? Why? An inexplicable chill seemed to crawl up from the soles of his feet along his spine, as if trying to devour all warmth. But before he could speak further, Shen Shi, as if opening a floodgate, continued, "I know that humanity's exploration of the cosmos has just begun. You know almost nothing about the deeper cosmos, but—" He shook his head, seemingly silently sighing. "The cosmos is far from as wonderful as you imagine." Gulp. Many people couldn't help swallowing, showing expressions of disbelief and doubt. This statement almost made it explicit. Tao recalled the words that Hengyu, the alien, said to him before entering. "Being backward means being beaten." The ominous feeling in his heart almost reached its peak. "Sir, what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate?" He noticed his voice even trembled involuntarily. To put it simply, Shen Shi's dark eyes scanned over them with a slow and clear tone. "An alien interstellar nomadic fleet has discovered and set its sights on Blue Star. At most, within 3 years, an alien invasion war will sweep across Blue Star." Boom! Everyone who understood this sentence felt their heads explode. Alien invaders. After knowing the existence of aliens, what is humanity most afraid of? That would be alien invaders. The fate of some indigenous people who were invaded in human history is still vivid in the mind, with a huge technological gap leading to one side having no power to resist. And what about the technological gap between humanity and alien invaders? Just look at all this before you, and you can know how much of this contains technology that humanity cannot even understand or imagine. Even elites like Tao and Villard at this moment were pale-faced and dazed, their inner panic almost beyond words. The worst-case scenario has actually appeared. "Sir," Tao stared hard at Shen Shi, barely remembering his mission, asking hesitantly, "Is the information accurate?" "When I received the information that interstellar nomadic fleet had already set off," Shen Shi said slowly, "the 3 years I mentioned refer to the time the fleet spends on the way. It's even possible that the scout forces have already arrived. This is based on the invaders' level of navigation technology for calculation. Although for future humanity, the history that was once blocked and erased is barely known. However, they have a deep understanding of this invader, whom they resisted for 600 years. This is one of the reasons why Shen Shi is confident to do something. As for whether the invaders will arrive, in fact, Shen Shi had once fantasized that the history was not the future of their world. But unfortunately, as time goes by, the connection between him and Time Crystal seems to deepen continuously. So a feeling that is indescribable but surely exists tells him that this is the future of this world, the future of this Blue Star." And this statement undoubtedly shattered the last fantasy of Tao and the others. Peace is about to disappear, war possibly inevitable, a defeat of utmost cruelty far beyond any previous war is coming. That would mean countless sacrifices, endless suffering, and potentially the doom of all humanity. Chapter 36. Chapter 36. Strive for the opportunity to win. Editor *Henny Translations. Different from the vast amount of films and novels that have been overused and overexposed. When it truly becomes reality, everyone will fear it. Because there are no protagonists in reality and no miracles. Sir, Taoda's voice was starting to become hoarse. His eyes were slightly red as he stared at Shen Shi, asking each word deliberately, is this invasion war really unstoppable? Shen Shi was silent for a moment, then shook his head. There's a lot behind this, with powers beyond human imagination. Then please tell us, sir, exactly what powers are involved. Taoda's tone was filled with determination. He seemed to have regained a moment of calm. Villard also watched Shen Shi closely from the side. This made Shen Shi somewhat surprised. To be honest, when he first saw those images and learned of this news, his heart was filled with despair. Without the time crystal and the trading market from the future, he could not imagine how deep his despair and breakdown might be. Is this the quality of human elites? Shen Shi's heart also brightened slightly. What he feared most was humanity losing the will to resist. If that happened, merely relying on his strength, even with the time crystal and the trading market 3,000 years in the future, would accomplish nothing. Are you really prepared? Shen Shi said with slight meaning, knowing more might lead to greater despair. Without despair, nothing would change. Taoda clenched his hands, slowly exhaled, and smiled self-mockingly. Ever since discovering the existence of aliens, we had already considered the worst-case scenario of an alien invasion, but even if it happens, what else can we do but resist with all our might? Especially since. At this point, he paused and looked at Shen Shi, as if there was a mysterious light in his eyes. Humans know about the cosmos, about interstellar matters, about the enemy. We are not completely ignorant, right? Shen Shi was looked at with such an image, and suddenly reacted. Indeed. His presence seemed to give them a lifeline. A human, acquiring a spaceship in the cosmos, even managing so many aliens from different civilizations and races, even able to come back and inform them about Blue Star being invaded beforehand. Isn't this a lifeline? With Shen Shi here, it's far better than being suddenly invaded. But, even though they were prepared, being stared at with such eyes gave Shen Shi a subtle pressure. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, I've been back for about 10 days. Taoda and Villard were taken aback but didn't say anything, instead listening carefully. Shen Shi's expression still did not change much, but his tone began to soften. As if talking to himself. I originally just wanted to take my family away and quietly leave, but before that, I couldn't help but experience the life I never had on Blue Star and reconnect with people I once thought I'd never meet again. Taoda and Villard's eyes suddenly brightened up. They exchanged a glance. They could see the surprise in each other's eyes. It was clear that the reason for this meeting seemed to be greatly related to the persons thought of as never to be met again, mentioned by the other party. This further implies that the crucial man before them still harbors feelings for humanity. When I realized, Shen Shi glanced at them indifferently, his expression seemed to soften a bit. I might prefer life on Blue Star, so I decided to strive to give you, humanity, a chance for victory. That's it. Having finally received a definite answer and understood the other's attitude, Taoda and Villard's hearts were excited to the point of trembling. When they learned of the alien invasion, even though they couldn't completely verify the truth of the news, they felt despair. But despair came from the news Shen Shi provided, and hope came equally so. Sir, as long as you are willing to help us, we will certainly not disappoint you, Villard couldn't help but say eagerly. He feared most that the other party would take family and friends and leave far away, leaving the humanity on Blue Star to face the invaders, knowing nothing about the enemy or where they came from. Just thinking about that situation, he felt a shiver throughout his body. If I'm disappointed, then it means humans have been defeated. Shen Shi looked at Villard, saying calmly, you'll lose everything. And I can still escape. The reason he said the previous words was not only to back up his actions from 10 days ago, but also to draw closer to humanity. The mystery needed to be established. The background needed even more establishment. However, Shen Shi also didn't want to completely separate from humanity. If the future is really changed, he would stay on Blue Star. Therefore, he needed to show humanity's side, demonstrate his bond with humanity. The care for family and first love was quite fitting. But he also needed to control the degree. He could do his utmost to change the future, but he could not bear all the responsibility and pressure. This was not a matter of whether he wanted to bear it or not. It was because he clearly understood that when everyone thinks you are a hero, any failure will become an original sin. As long as there's an opportunity, I believe we'll seize it. It's for the future of humanity, Taude said earnestly, his eyes bright with spirit. Yes, yes, Villard nodded repeatedly. As for those who understood, amid these intense ups and downs, most were gasping for breath, with their eyes and feelings becoming incredibly complex. I hope after knowing the specific situation, you can still be this optimistic. Shen Shi did not confirm or deny, just raised his fruit tea again, took a sip, as if refreshing his throat, and slowly said, "This cosmos is far grander than humans imagine." It was like the opening of a grand movie. All around, whether the blue sky, the ever-changing sea, or the soft sand underfoot, began to twist and then faded away like a tide. The vast, endless cosmos slowly appeared. Before everyone's eyes were nothing but flickering stars. Who among them had ever been in the cosmos? At this moment, they were captivated by this incredibly mysterious scene. Chief Engineer Liu was so excited he was trembling. Even though he realized through gravity and the touch beneath him that everything before them was just an illusion, not the real cosmos. But so what? Chapter 37, and thus they perished. Editor *Henny Translations. As individuals working behind the scenes in space exploration, how could they not have a love for the cosmos? How could they not dream of going to space? Originally, this was a fantasy he could never realize in his lifetime, but now, in another way, it has been achieved. The others might not have the same sentiments as Chief Engineer Liu, but they were equally astounded by the incredibly realistic environment and the advanced technology on the spaceship. One person seemed to realize something, reached into his pocket, and his expression was suddenly shocked. He had just grabbed a handful of sand and put it into his pocket. But now it had disappeared without a trace. The whole person was dumbfounded. Recalling the real touch of that handful of sand earlier, he couldn't help but feel somewhat bewildered. What is real, what is fake? But the power of alien technology was just beginning to be revealed. The entire cosmos is an infinite star sea, Shen Shi's unhurried voice slowly came. No one can know how much life was born in the cosmos, how many civilizations, how many unknown existences. But there will always be some civilizations that gradually develop, begin to build spaceships and explore the cosmos. Everyone who could understand the Eastern country language couldn't help but tense their nerves, listening carefully, unwilling to miss a single word. And those who couldn't understand could only whisper in low voices, begging the Eastern country people to translate quietly for them. Because everyone understood. The captain before them, this man, was unveiling a corner of the veil of the universe's mysteries, incomprehensible to humanity. When these civilizations become more numerous and begin to interact with each other, what will happen? Shen Shi's gaze looked at everyone present. He seemed to be doing more than just explaining. Chief Engineer Liu quickly reacted, answering, "They will gradually form a unique interstellar society through continuous probing, cooperation, and war." Correct, Shen Shi nodded. In an instant, this piece of the cosmos flowed rapidly, as if traversing infinite distances in a moment. A gigantic bright yellow planet appeared in front of everyone. Some people couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. It was so enormous. It even had 6 satellites orbiting it. And it also had a massive yellow star. Only in the vast star sea can one appreciate such a majestic spectacle coming directly at them. This is Wo Star, the closest mother star to Blue Star that I currently know of, nurturing civilization, only 18 nodes away, Shen Shi said. Some people keenly perceived the information contained in Shen Shi's words. Currently known, meaning even Shen Shi is uncertain whether there are other civilizations within this vast range, and nodes are undoubtedly a unit of distance. Taude and Villard kept this information firmly in their minds. They glanced at their own highly excited scientists, seemingly understanding why the other party brought these scientists along. Because even the most basic popular science contains extremely valuable knowledge and information for humanity. The civilization on Wo Star is a form of intelligent creature that calls themselves Warren. Their development is about 800 years ahead of current human civilization. Accompanying Shen Shi's words, one space station after another densely appeared around Wo Star. Furthermore, on those 6 satellites, huge, metal-rich immigrant cities began to appear. Even without Shen Shi saying, they could guess how the 800 years were calculated. It was based on the current rate of human development, projected 800 years into the future. When they saw those diverse shapes of cosmic battleships appear, it was inevitable that some unrest stirred among them. Humanity had just stepped into the cosmos, and the other party already had such a massive fleet of cosmic battleships. Does that mean they might already have the capability to invade? Or the invaders mentioned earlier them? Shen Shi seemed to ignore the sounds of unrest. He just continued. Like humanity, after the Warren began stepping into interstellar space, they continuously expanded outward, leaving their star system, attempting to explore more realms, also seeking other life and civilizations in the cosmos. After developing the curvature engine, achieving sublight speed travel, they spent hundreds of years and found a planet they named Ha, only 6 nodes away. The star sea flowed once again. This time, everyone was once again stunned, because a blue planet appeared before them. At first glance, they almost thought it was Blue Star. Ha planet, as you can see, the ecological environment is highly similar to Blue Star, with oceans, land, forests, life, and yet, civilization has not yet developed. The scene expanded, and everyone felt as if they were experiencing a dreamlike traversal, falling into Ha planet as the environment changed. A vibrant planet full of life was displayed before them. Giant creatures resembling dinosaurs, all kinds of rare plants never seen before, and even climate changes, thunder roaring in the high sky, pouring rain representing the water cycle. Some scientists were incredibly excited. Such a scene, such a planet, isn't it exactly what humanity has long sought? Just its existence alone is enough to cause huge waves among all humanity. Such waves can accelerate the development of space technology by a minimum of 100 years. Because immigrating here would become humanity's greatest dream after continuously destroying Blue Star's environment. But they suddenly realized this planet had already been discovered by the Warren. Sigh. Chief Engineer Liu instinctively sighed, then as if returning to reality from a delusion, wearing a self-mocking face. Even facing an alien fleet invasion, they still dreamed. Unfortunately, if only these space workers discovered this planet sooner, at least it could have pushed the further development of space technology. The Warren exploration fleet discovered this planet. Shen Shi continued slowly. They were extremely delighted and immediately prepared to send messages back, intending to carry out large-scale immigration and development on this planet. Villard couldn't help but nod slightly. If it were humanity, they would do the same. But he didn't know what Shen Shi's purpose was in telling this. Is this civilization, closest to Blue Star, the invaders? And Shen Shi? He raised his fruit tea again, took a sip. Then, with a storytelling-like tone, he continued slowly. Thus, the Warren civilization perished. Chapter 38. Chapter 38. It's time to give some hope. Editor *Henny Translations. Silence. A silence akin to deathly stillness. Villard's mouth was agape, eyes bulging, with a lingering look of bewilderment. What was he doing? What had he heard? Wasn't there a huge chunk of dialogue missing in between? How could such a civilization, which developed a powerful cosmic fleet, be annihilated just like that? This planet's real name is called Darcy. Shen Shi pointed at the life planet before them, which seemed even more prosperous and vibrant than Blue Star. It indeed did not develop an indigenous civilization, yet it already belongs to an interstellar society. With just this statement, the others had already grasped Shen Shi's meaning. They gazed at this beautiful, healthy planet, extremely suitable for life, with eyes that had now changed. No longer filled with the same yearning as before, but instead mingled with threads of fear and shiver. It already had an owner, and just being discovered led to the destruction of a civilization that had stepped out of its mother star to become an interstellar civilization. And the scene shifted. Once again, it returned to the mother star of the Warren. This time, what people saw was a scene of deathly silence. No longer were there ships flying to and fro, not even the immensely developed-looking space stations were functioning, and the grand and magnificent space cities no longer emitted light. People didn't know what exactly happened within the Warren civilization. It didn't even seem to have much destruction. But they could imagine. In Shen Shi's light, almost insignificant words, like the death of a trivial small animal, how much despair was truly contained. In the cosmos, a gigantic civilization, countless lives, could be so easily dismissed at such a level. Sir, Tao De suddenly sharply noticed a significant point in Shen Shi's words and couldn't help but ask, interstellar society, isn't it just one? Of course not, Shen Shi nodded. Earlier in his words, the phrase an interstellar society was used as a descriptor. This naturally wasn't a slip of the tongue. In human civilization, society refers to the collective formed by certain classes or groups within defined boundaries, with interrelated components working together to achieve certain goals. Shen Shi recited an explanation like reciting from memory, then said, an interstellar society is much the same, the components within being individual races, individual civilizations. Tao De and the others seemed to have achieved some understanding. Shen Shi had already spoken at the outset. The so-called interstellar society refers to the increasing number of civilizations stepping into the cosmos and encountering each other interstellar, gradually forming a society through constant probing, cooperation, even warfare. It is very apparent. The Warren civilization was just such an unfortunate civilization that barged headlong into this interstellar society, consisting of unknown how many civilizations. And what they encountered was war. Tao De had realized something. He slightly inhaled and couldn't help but ask, isn't the civilization wanting to invade ours also from this interstellar society? Exactly, Shen Shi gently nodded. The interstellar society he referred to was, in fact, the Mude system, with the pasture master at its apex. That which occupied the Darcy planet, conquered the Warren civilization, belonged to a third level within the Mude system, a sea-level civilization. Even in the cosmos 3,000 years later, even when part of the same system, this civilization still bestowed immense terror upon human civilization, as clearly seen in the database. After all, it is the closest to Blue Star. Shen Shi's affirmation undoubtedly stirred up another intense upheaval in everyone's hearts, bringing with it increasingly heavy despair. Just as Shen Shi initially said, sometimes the more you know, the more hopeless it feels. In their hearts, they already had a rough concept of an interstellar society. That's a colossal entity comprised of unknown how many civilizations. Even the Warren civilization, which developed several centuries ahead of humanity, perished so lightly. What does humanity have to resist? What reliance does humanity have to resist? Some people had already shown despair on their faces, even beginning to tear up, faces pale. Unless they were completely without ties, already having given up on the world, there's no one who wouldn't fear the arrival of the end, who wouldn't be afraid to lose everything before them. But Tao De retained a sliver of rationale. Supporting him now was still Shen Shi's words. Give humanity a chance to win. So we still have a chance, right, sir? Tao De stared tightly at Shen Shi. Once this question was posed, everyone, including Villard, focused intently on Shen Shi. And Shen Shi, after a brief silence, then nodded affirmatively. Yes, there is a chance. If there was no chance at all, he wouldn't appear. This opportunity was a judgment he made after understanding more about the future. Phew. Even Tao De at this moment exhaled as if letting out a breath, taking a long breath, feeling his limbs slightly weak. It's good to have a chance. He could already envisage the chaos these words and news would create once returned home. But as long as there's a chance, he believed, despair would not dominate. If the invader of Blue Star was the civilization that destroyed the Warren civilization, I wouldn't appear before you. Shen Shi stated plainly, I would take away everything and everyone I care about, maybe take some memorabilia, take some humanity as the fire, then leave promptly and decisively, because staying would have no meaning. Tao De slightly lowered his gaze. He understood this was the other party showing their stance. The other party could assist them, but if it became infeasible, they wouldn't stay to perish alongside humanity. However, Tao De didn't feel anything wrong with this, because the other party said they would take the human fire. If it truly reached such a point, to the extent humanity had to perish, then the fire is hope. Villard, born in the Western Alliance, was even less likely to find it wrong. He even murmured softly, when God wanted to destroy the world, he commanded Noah to build the ark. His eyes grew brighter and even faintly excited. even though Villard was not a devout believer. At this moment, Shen Shi's emergence seemed strikingly similar to Noah building the ark. Shen Shi glanced at him. He naturally also heard that whisper. However, if only to be a Noah, he wouldn't need to appear right now. Sufficient despair has been given. It's time to provide some hope. The things I just told you occurred 700 years ago. Shen Shi spoke again, lifting his head, gazing at the planet before him. The Warren civilization is gone, but the Warren have not become extinct. Chapter 39. Chapter 39. A corporation named Star Sea. Editor * Henny Translations. Civilization has perished, yet people still exist. Tao De and the others found it hard to comprehend for a moment. But instinctively they realized this was by no means a good thing. Profit is the main theme in the interstellar society as well. War is just a means to acquire profit, and intelligent beings have some significant value in the interstellar. Shen Shi straightened his back, his gaze sweeping across these people one by one. He slowly said, "Whether it's humans or the Warren, the reason for being invaded lies in this profit, of course. The original sin remains weakness." All those who understood this sentence had their mouths slightly open, their expressions dazed. It was as if the surrounding infinite cosmos had transformed into an abyss, falling into hell. In the information age, who doesn't know the principle of having a treasure is a crime? Even if not all alien civilizations are inherently violent and belligerent, even if there still are civilizations that love peace, but as long as the struggle for profit is involved, the entire cosmos is inevitably blood-soaked. Especially when this profit even includes intelligent life itself. If you don't fight for profit, if you don't strive to grow stronger, then you become the profit that is fought over and invaded. So Dark, Chief Engineer Lu's body slightly trembled, seemingly unable to accept. The cosmos he and countless astronauts deeply love is covered in endless bloodshed. You're right, Shen Shi glanced at him. The essence of the cosmos is darkness. Before peace and order are born, anywhere is inevitably chaos and darkness. This reason is simple enough that even a middle school student who has studied history can understand. How could the people present not understand? The reason for such pain and discomfort is simply because it does not align with the current interests of Blue Star people. It might even bring endless catastrophe to Blue Star, to humanity, to themselves. But even if doomsday will inevitably come, right before its arrival, mankind must still face everything. Therefore Shen Shi didn't give them any buffer time. Continued speaking. This interstellar society has practically already formed a system to maximize profit. Over 99% of the Warren individuals have become spoils of war, a fate countless times more despairing than slavery. Yet there remains 1% of individuals granted a shred of freedom by pity. They become part of this interstellar society, become the hyenas, roaming endlessly in the pursuit of redemption they will never reach. The scene shifted once again. A completely different fleet slowly began to sail out from the Warren's mother star. Metal and flesh intertwined, transforming into each other's cage. Merely gazing at that ghastly form seemed to evoke endless pain, like falling into hell, becoming a demon burned eternally by flames, madly venting their own pain to all who observe. Everyone vaguely understood something. Tao De stared dead onto this fleet. These, very likely, are the invaders. No matter how tragic their history, no matter how painful their present, they are humanity's enemies. This is the enemy that Blue Star must face. Shen Shi's words affirmed everyone's speculation. He also gazed at this fleet, continued. The Warren can no longer be called a civilization. Their technology has been replaced from top to bottom. The original technology tree and culture heritage were completely destroyed. The so-called interstellar nomadic fleet refers to the fleet that forever lost their mother star, lost the future, forever roaming and invading in the interstellar, until complete annihilation. They are the pasture master's hyenas. Shen Shi was like these people before him. The more one understands, the more one can feel the cruelty of the cosmos. Destroying civilization, enslaving population is not the end. They also give false hope, making you struggle to live in pain worse than death. Future humanity, compared to this fleet, what's the difference? The same loss of past, loss of future. Excuse me, sir, is their technology stronger or weaker than before their downfall? Villard asked with a distinct Eastern country language accent. Coming from the Western Alliance, he's clearly more pragmatic. He didn't care at all about how tragic this fleet's history was. He only cared about how strong the incoming enemy might be. Compared to humanity, there's not much difference. Shen Shi glanced at him and replied. Villard fell silent for a moment. Indeed, not much difference. Humanity doesn't even have a single cosmic battleship, yet the enemy possesses an entire fleet. But he seemed to think of something, and the gaze that had dimmed suddenly brightened again. Compared to the forces you belong to, he asked. This question was quite direct, but Villard couldn't care much anymore. He desperately wanted to know where hope lies. Tauda was also staring at Shen Shi. None of them forgot that earlier, the alien who brought them aboard said this spaceship belonged to an Enterprise civilization. Faced with this question, with the cautious and hopeful gazes of these people, Shen Shi remained silent. He naturally understood where hope was. According to the classification in the mute system, humans 3,000 years in the future are D-level, while the invaders 3 years later are merely E-level. This is hope. But the problem lies in, solely relying on antique trades from the black market, he likely can't garner full support from the civilization in the future. The black market is a black market because it cannot be public. Future humanity is also strictly monitored. Even the immigrant ships don't qualify to own. And limited trades alone change the future. Shen Shi certainly has confidence, but can't guarantee it 100%. However, hasn't he already decided to try with all his might if given the chance? I belong to an Enterprise civilization known as Star C, or more accurately, it can be called an interstellar society, he stated. This is evidently a name translated by meaning. Just one sentence made some people's faces light up with joy. They now understood the weight of an interstellar society. That is the force any newly entering cosmic civilization encounters, which can only choose to integrate or be destroyed. And this man, who very likely is humanity's only hope, actually found such a backing. Don't celebrate too early, Shen Shi shook his head and continued with the explanation he had long prepared. It's already described with society. You should understand the significance. The Warren are merely an inconspicuous fleet within their society, but I have only just started in Star C, it's only. Enterprise society, ultimately, it's different from pasture society. Chapter 40. Luckily he appeared. Editor * Henny Translations. In order to conceal the time crystal and still, reasonably, present traded items, Shen Shi has been racking his brain recently. Luckily, he runs a murder mystery script shop. He's encountered all sorts of bizarre scenarios. Thus a fictitious Star C Corporation was born. So Shen Shi's background has gradually become clearer. He's a lucky individual from Blue Star, who by chance was absorbed by such an interstellar power. In a few short years, he became the captain of a warship. Upon learning Blue Star was targeted, he returned to help his mother star and his species. As long as this identity, this background, becomes ingrained in people's minds, Shen Shi will possess a transcendent status. Even if the crisis 3 years from now is successfully overcome, this status can still be maintained. He doesn't plan to get involved in political administration. But he also doesn't want to lose the initiative someday. He desires a brilliant future of his own. And as he presented this scenario, Tauda and others finally saw hope in dawn. Tauda couldn't help but ask, do we need to pay a price to help us? Since it's a corporation, profits come first, so this is easy to think about. But Shen Shi shook his head. He directly said, the corporation knows very little about the other party, and vice versa. This is a stage that must be extremely cautious. Moreover, humanity is too weak to the point where even offering everything might not be enough to move the corporation. Tauda and Villard's expression stiffened. They opened their mouths, but were deflated to find they had no grounds for rebuttal. After all, everything about that corporate interstellar society comes from Shen Shi. Even though Shen Shi told them much today, they know too little about the cosmos and these extraterrestrial powers far stronger than humans. The only thing they understand is their own weakness. Humanity is too weak. At this moment, Shen Shi's calm voice came again. Humanity is too weak, lacking the interests that would compel the corporation to intervene, but I have applied for a loan from the corporation in the name of creating a branch. He needs a phrasing that doesn't seem effortless, to explain the items acquired through future transactions, to avoid too high expectations and limitless requests. Since it's a corporation, a loan is a good pretext. Upon hearing this, Tauda and others widened their eyes slightly. Some people who were still sitting jumped up. Among the crowd, suppressed and tumultuous voices appeared. Some who didn't understand hurriedly asked those Eastern country people around them, wanting to know what the mysterious man before them had said. When they understood, their eyes towards Shen Shi also became excited. So this is the chance for victory, the other party mentioned initially. They thought it was assistance from other powers, but unexpectedly it was a loan. But will this work? Isn't it said that humanity doesn't have the interest to compel the corporation to intervene? Villard even impatiently asked his most pressing concern. Sir, loans in interstellar space should also need auditing, right? This is simple to conceive. Whether it's a loan or high-interest loan, the greatest, even the sole profit, can only be obtained after the recovery process. If there's any situation where recovery becomes impossible, it's not profit but a loss. Thus, as long as the goal is profit, reviewing recovery risk is inevitable. And given Blue Star's current situation, although they don't know the audit standards of that corporate civilization Shen Shi mentioned, Villard and others clearly see it as highly risky. A loan under such circumstances. However, Shen Shi glanced at him with indifference, calmly saying, "The initial audit has already ended." Ended, Villard couldn't help but exclaim. Then he realized something, his face showing enlightenment. Clearly, if the review failed, today's meeting might not have happened. "The review's target isn't you but me," Shen Shi calmly explained, "assessing how much chance I have to escape this crisis, or whether I intend to perish with my race. As long as it's confirmed I can ensure safety, then the collateral for this loan will be my future." With this explanation, everyone immediately understood. Contrary to their assumptions, this turned out to be a personal loan. They looked at Shen Shi, their gaze changing once again. All of humanity combined couldn't receive any support, yet this man before them, with his own future, could secure a loan potentially allowing humanity to triumph. Such weight. Although they don't know why this man has such weight, at this moment, countless people are grateful in their hearts. Thankfully he appeared. Sir's action. Even Tao clenched his fists, breathing to adjust his emotion. He's someone who remains calm during a crisis. But today's impact is just too much and too significant. Alien spaceship appearing before them, Eastern country people returning from distant Star Sea, news of extraterrestrial invaders about to attack Blue Star, and that bloodthirsty cosmos they've glimpsed the tip of. All of this has torn apart his, and everyone's past experiences, perceptions, and common knowledge, replacing it with enormous fear for the future. And now, hope and dawn are already before them. His lips trembled slightly as if trying to utter words of gratitude, but ultimately, he stood up and deeply bowed to Shen Shi. Nonetheless, this was insufficient to express his gratitude at this moment. Though the other's expression was mostly indifferent and his words weren't particularly warm, ultimately, it was this man, this Eastern country person, who tore open a rift in the abyss of despair, letting a ray of light shine through. For this alone, he's deserving of any human's gratitude. At this moment, it wasn't only Tao. Everyone else also gradually quieted down. Then from Villard to Chief Engineer Liu to everyone else, they deeply bowed to Shen Shi. This was their collective expression of gratitude. Perhaps it also represents humanity's gratitude. And Shen Shi silently bore this bow. His expression still didn't change much, but observant people would notice that Shen Shi's back had straightened a bit for some time. This gratitude lasted for a while. When the crowd sat down, they felt the atmosphere with Shen Shi had lightened considerably. Yet Shen Shi's expression at this time showed noticeable change for the first time, becoming extremely serious. "Having decided to help humanity help my mother star, I will not hesitate." Shen Shi's gaze sharpened, tightly fixing on everyone, especially Tao and Villard, emphasizing, "But this crisis cannot be resolved by me alone. I hope all humanity will fully coordinate for their destiny, their future, all they have. Otherwise, when it's time to abandon, I won't hesitate either." Chapter 41, Re-entering the market. This time, exposing the warship within the visual range of a certain level of global authorities, even allowing such a team of representatives from various countries to board, Shen Shi had multiple objectives he wanted to achieve. First, to declare his own existence and successfully establish contact with the human high level. Second, to reveal the crisis of the alien fleet's invasion 3 years later. Third, to state his position and, in the subsequent actions, gain the cooperation of the entire human race, obtaining a certain degree of initiative. There's no doubt the first and second are easy, but the third is the hardest. It's not just because you have enough power you'll be able to do it easily. The settings of background, character, and even attitude are all for this point. Moreover, what Shen Shi said was basically just describing the real situation in another way. If he discovers that various countries, or rather some human forces, are still, under these circumstances, targeting him with hostility and greed, then he will indeed mercilessly take his family and friends, select another tens of thousands of humans, and escape directly, never to return. Anyway, he tried his best. Since the task is unachievable, he will not feel guilty. However, after he clearly expressed his stance, whether it's Tao de, Villard, or even the representative from the Nia Empire, they all responded seriously, solemnly pledging that they would never betray Shen Shi's help to the Mother Star and humanity. Shen Shi said nothing more about this. He just waved his hand lightly, and in an instant everything around him receded like a tide, transforming into a beautifully crafted scenery atop a mountain, while they were similarly propelled by invisible power, soaring into the sky, passing through the light gate in a blink, and then appearing at the entrance. They exited the spaceship. When they once again, standing firmly on their own ship, everyone's expression was a bit dazed. They looked up, staring at the black sphere still floating in midair, feeling as if ages had passed. No, it wasn't as if. In this short time, even though not much seemed to have changed, the world indeed became different. The world, they knew, was no longer just this small planet but an expansive, vast universe, another exceedingly broad, exceedingly powerful, exceedingly dangerous world. Only until the black sphere began fading incessantly, silently disappearing in front of everyone's eyes without the slightest trace, did they gradually come to their senses. Everything is real, the world has changed. All information from this meeting must be kept within a certain range, never to be disclosed to the public. Villard immediately looked at Taudu and said, "For this, I think we need to sign a joint agreement." "All right," Taudu didn't hesitate at all. "It's just a letter of intent." Moreover, in his view, indeed this news cannot be known to the public for the time being. Although, that man might have plans to make it public. But they have to be careful. Once the news of the alien fleet's invasion in 3 years is known to the public, some places with relatively weak order might fall into chaos in a short time, and no one knows how many people might die because of it, while even places with strong order would still encounter continuous troubles. Seeing Tauda nod, Villard breathed a sigh of relief. But he looked at Tauda, then raised his head to look at the sky, and finally couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Tao, how many years do you think the technology on that ship is ahead of ours? Flying your country's most advanced battle plane back to 200 years ago and telling them it is technology from 500 years in the future. Is there a difference?" Tauda retorted. Villard was stunned, then understood Tauda's meaning, smiling bitterly. The Western Alliance currently has the most advanced technology globally, something they are proud of. But in front of this spaceship, these technologies are meaningless. Can't find, can't catch up, even imagine it's difficult. In such a situation, whether it's advanced by 1,000 or 2,000 years, there's no difference. That's weakness, Villard sighed at last and hurried away. The others did about the same. During the less than 1 hour they were on the spaceship, the attention of the world's high-level officials was focused on them, and now as they returned, those people must have been impatiently waiting. Just not knowing what kind of reaction they will have once they know all this, whether they can face this seemingly otherworldly new world. Shen Shi also wanted to know this question. He actually hadn't left, still hovering above the ocean, witnessing the reactions of these people below, even directly listening to their domestic reports. Looking at the current situation, his goals should have been basically achieved. Holding huge information advantage, accomplishing this isn't actually that difficult. But the matters to follow are the most difficult and important. But Shen Shi has gradually adapted to this kind of pressure. It's time to trade again. He looked at his empty hand, where the time crystal, seemingly containing a vast galaxy, slowly appeared. The time crystal that allows him to cross 3,000 years in time is indeed magical, but the real help at this moment comes from the black market 3,000 years in the future. Unlike the wandering excitement of the first trade and the urgent anxiety of the second, this time he is rather calm. Thus in the warship he slightly closed his eyes, feeling his consciousness split in two, once again arriving at that quaint street. On him still carrying multicolored anonymous light. This time, Shen Shi didn't go to find the collector, but walked slowly down the street, more carefully observing everything around. He now isn't entirely ignorant of the civilization 3,000 years in the future, so he can vaguely understand that this black market is definitely not simple. Not to mention the huge personal space that can even set down warships. Just the technology that allows items to be precisely teleported anytime anywhere is remarkably special. Even for the human civilization 3,000 years later, that is absolutely beyond their technological level. No, in the cosmos, teleportation technology is a crucial representation of the level of civilization technology. Such as the Warren civilization, they only master sublight speed navigation technology, meaning they often need to spend hundreds of years to travel within ranges measured in the hundreds of light years. Chapter 42, I need to defend the planet. In the interstellar realm, this is undoubtedly extremely clumsy and sluggish. In the war that led to the extinction of the Warren civilization, even the expedition teams they sent out failed to transmit any messages back before losing their civilization. Yet even for civilizations that have initially mastered space teleportation technology, teleportation is not possible anywhere at any time. They must first reach the points of spatial weakness, known as nodes. Cosmos space is not flat. Rather, it has a certain curvature which can be imagined as a large curved membrane. This is the basic principle of curvature navigation. However, this membrane is not only a single curve. It possesses continuous, irregular undulations. Once a curvature becomes too large, it may make contact with another space with equally large curvature. These points of contact are the nodes. They are the distance units used in interstellar society. Countless nodes divide the entire cosmos into a vast grid, where the shape and size of each grid are irregular and completely different. For civilizations that have not mastered space teleportation technology, the distance from one node to another may be close at hand or may extend hundreds or even thousands of light years away. However, civilizations equipped with space teleportation technology can leap directly over these potentially extremely vast distances once they reach a node. This is still the most basic space teleportation technology. Advanced technology allows for direct teleportation within a certain range of proximity to a node. This distance is called the teleportation distance. This is an important criterion for judging the quality of jump engines. Shen Shi's current ship, the Wanged, has a teleportation distance of about 13 light years. Do not underestimate these 13 light years. Even in the human civilization 3,000 years into the future, it belongs to the most top-tier engines. The closest node to Blue Star is only about 16 light years away, which means Shen Shi only needs to navigate the cosmos at sublight speed for about 3 years to perform a teleportation and arrive at another node tens of light years away. Next, when heading to another node, it's possible to save another 13 years of time. If the Warren fleet, which is about to invade Blue Star, possessed such technology and did not pay a high price to use the public teleportation channels within the Mute system to achieve a zero teleportation distance node teleportation, they would have arrived at Blue Star at least 200 years in advance during these several node navigations. Moreover, it is evident that whether escaping or chasing, a longer teleportation distance undoubtedly carries a greater advantage. Hence it can be seen how powerful the trade goods transfer in this black market truly is. Although it is unclear how the human civilization 3,000 years in the future acquired it, given their status and power, Shen Shi now understands why the transactions must occur in the form of a black market and barter, and that there should be other means to ensure it doesn't get leaked. Otherwise, future humanity would be finished. It's important to know that within a mere 21-node distance from Blue Star, there exists a sea-level civilization that effortlessly annihilated the Warren civilization. If it weren't for this civilization watching, humanity 3,000 years later wouldn't even manage to obtain a single medium-sized immigrant ship. Many speculations flashed in Shen Shi's mind, but his gaze continued sweeping over the storefronts on both sides of the street. Whether it's the black market or the time crystal, the secrets behind them are too far out of reach for him. He only needs to focus on current matters. Suddenly, Shen Shi's eyes lit up. A shop sign was displayed with words he could not understand, yet the translation clearly read security services. The number of shops within the black market is actually not much, about 100, considered extremely rare for a civilization with a population of several trillion. However, this also means how hard it is to have a shop in this wonderful and powerful black market. The collector who offered the walk is definitely extraordinary in the human civilization 3,000 years later. Shen Shi hopes the shop is the same. He walks straight inside. This is a store with a Western architectural style, naturally not as classically styled as the collector's shop, but rather carrying a bizarre flavor. Upon entering, Shen Shi realizes that it's completely futuristic inside. On the walls, on the counters, many miniature products are displayed, many of which are visibly weapons. Shen Shi even spots a cannon radiating dark red light, emanating an awe-inspiring aura. Came to the right place. Shen Shi quickly scanned the shop and soon saw a person standing in front of the counter. His eyes brightened slightly. Similar to the collector, this person does not resemble a modern human at all, seemingly modified throughout. However, unlike the collector, his limbs and torso are mechanical structures primarily in black, shrouded in armor exuding a chilling aura, while his head is also armored, completely covering the eyes and nasal cavity, exposing only the lower half of a face that resembles a human's. Even by modern standards, he is absolutely considered chic. However, Shen Shi focused on the exposed, somewhat exquisite lips and smoothly contoured chin. Male-female. What do you want? While Shen Shi was observing, a voice appeared without warning. The opponent's lips did not move, yet Shen Shi clearly felt that the opponent's gaze was on him, even. A murderous, heavy emotion came forth, instantaneously making Shen Shi slightly stern. He is no longer the novice from the first few visits who knew nothing. He already has some understanding of primordial energy, so he can better understand what the opponent is doing. Stimulating primordial energy, yet precisely controlling it at the threshold of the black market defining consciousness attack. This level of control. A breath of a master. I need to defend a planet against a fleet, Shen Shi said. Instantly, he could clearly feel the opponent's attitude change. The enemy's strength. These words from the shopkeeper were spoken aloud, with a gender-neutral tone. Even the translation could not distinguish gender. Moreover, the originally surging murderous aura on them also recedes like a tide, replaced by a certain seriousness. Shen Shi was not surprised by this. He knew now that this change of attitude was not only because he proposed a big deal, but also because of the language he used. This is the true ancient language. From the information obtained in the database, this ancient language itself is pretty precious, belonging to expensive information. In other words, every word he says is, in essence, a kind of gift. Chapter 43, isn't this done? This is also why the collector put great importance on him from the beginning. Even in the end, he was believed to be from some Yuan clan. Only in the collector's place, lacking comparison, this attitude wasn't very obvious. But this time, the store owner's change in attitude after he spoke was exceedingly clear. Of course, regardless of his inner reactions, Shen Shi can now control his emotions well, not to mention the anonymity effect, so his emotions didn't show at all. He calmly said, it should be E-level, similar to the Warren fleet from 3,000 years ago. No more accurate data, the store owner asked. The translation showed a simple, efficient tone, almost without extra words. This is probably the opponent's style. No, using the Warren fleet from 3,000 years ago as a reference is fine. It won't be stronger than that, Shen Shi said. This statement wouldn't cause any issues. From the information library, it's known that even 3,000 years in the future, the dangers faced by human civilization aren't just the tribute, every 12 years. Various dangers still exist in the cosmos, not only involving interstellar pirates made up of various races, but also some civilizations crazily plundering everywhere. The so-called security service was also born from this situation. In such services, it's usually hard to obtain specific data on enemies, coupled with the need for confidentiality at times, so comparisons are made using other subjects with clearer information. Therefore, Shen Shi directly taking the Warren fleet from 3,000 years ago as a subject doesn't seem unusual. Mercenaries, the store owner asked again. No specific coordinates cannot be exposed, Shen Shi answered. Shen Shi now knows that most interstellar security services are mercenary fleets. Yes, although future humans aren't allowed to have migration warships, it doesn't mean there aren't fleet legions. The most fundamental difference between the two is whether they can completely disconnect from supply points and be entirely self-sufficient. Militarized fleets have strong military force while highly relying on supply lines. This means such fleets can't leave supply points, much less escape the control of the Mude system. Warren nomadic fleet is like this, and so are human fleets. Migrant ships are different. They must have whole production systems to meet the long-term consumption needs of personnel on board. Some medium and large migration warships can not only accommodate over 1 billion racial individuals, but also have the conditions for further technological advancement, making it possible for a race or civilization to completely escape the Mude system. Therefore, they are restricted. After all, in the vast universe, no civilization, no existence can know everything, control everything. Therefore, theoretically, he indeed has the possibility to survive with the Walked, even if it's just a small migration ship. Of course, Shen Shi now wants more than just survival. Unfortunately, he cannot hire future human legions to participate in the protection of Earth 3,000 years ago. It is impossible now, regardless of whether it could be done. Time Crystal's existence is something Shen Shi cannot let slip any secrets. He only wants to trade weapons, equipment, or even warships. But after Shen Shi refused to hire, the store owner fell silent. Why? Refusal to hire, reluctance to reveal the location, this should be the norm in the black market. After all, if you really want to hire, you can completely follow official routes. Shen Shi, in a state of anonymity, couldn't help but furrow his brows. Based on the information obtained from the library, security services are not illegal services. This also gives Shen Shi confidence in claiming to give humanity a chance at victory. From his perspective, the thriving security industry also implies that military development is not weak, so even merely trading some weapons or warships from the black market should offer a chance to resist invaders. After all, human civilization 3,000 years later has already reached D-level. Although he isn't sure what size gap this grade division entails, the threat brought by that sea-level civilization to humanity suggests the gap shouldn't be small. Could he have underestimated the Warren fleet's strength and overestimated the black market's ability? Just as Shen Shi's mood began to sink, the store owner finally spoke. This requires establishing a planet fortress, which takes time. His tone noticeably increased. Also, the price will be very expensive, extremely expensive. The translated voice even added a sentence in the end. From this, it's clear this is the reason for the opponent's silence. Shen Shi sighed in relief at this moment. Expensive price. Unless antiques aren't valuable or the opponent doesn't want them. Otherwise, he really doesn't need to worry about the price. The only issue is the time. How long will the time take? He asked. That depends on the size of the planet to defend. 15,000 kilometers in diameter, Shen Shi responded. The data units will automatically be replaced in translation, and the reported number is slightly larger than Blue Star size. The store owner fell silent again. In fact, the opponent no longer stood there like a statue, but rotated his head, eyes hidden beneath the black battle armor pointed at Shen Shi's location. Then he opened his lips and slowly said, "If you can produce trade goods that satisfy me, at the fastest, it'll take just 2 years and 3 months." Perhaps worried that Shen Shi couldn't fully understand his meaning, he even released his emotions again. It was importance, confidence, and strands of doubt. Yes, doubt about whether Shen Shi could produce trade goods that satisfy him to complete this big transaction. But at this moment, Shen Shi's focus was captured by the 2 years and 3 months message. The Warren fleet's speed is right here. The main fleet certainly won't arrive until 3 years later. The proposal put forth by the store owner requires 2 years and 3 months. This means success. Shen Shi even felt a significant sense of joy. Although he still doesn't know what exactly a planet fortress refers to, this is clearly much better preparation than he initially imagined, such as buying weapons and equipment. He trusts the judgment of a professional. Since the other party says this plan can work, then it should work. Shen Shi has realized that perhaps he wasn't overestimating, but rather underestimating the strength of future human civilization, or underestimating the power brought by his ability to trade across 3,000 years. But no matter what, this transaction must be completed. Complete it, and humanity can truly have a future that is altered. Shen Shi said solemnly, "I will trade using ancient books." He fixed his gaze on the store owner, wanting to see the other's reaction. As expected, the emotions transmitted by the store owner grew increasingly intense. "What ancient books?" he asked. Shen Shi didn't hesitate, directly taking out the script murder outlines he'd stored in space from the store earlier. He now knows that in the future, the most valuable antiques are those related to culture. Whether it's text, film, or even music. This seemed to affect some achievement of a race in primordial energy. Therefore, he was somewhat confident in attracting the other party. Indeed, this proved to be the case. When the projection of these outlines, which have yellowed over 3,000 years, appeared, the seemingly very cold store owner actually came out from behind the counter, cautiously and meticulously inspecting these sheets. The information on them was already protected and screened by terminals. But the terminal also provided some introduction, such as completeness, proportion of clear text, and specific age. Chapter 44, a rare opportunity. Is this the word game that emerged at the end of the Earth-Star era? His tone seemed to gradually reveal more and more emotions. Shen Shi could feel his unabashed, immense interest. This kind of antique indeed possesses extremely high value in the future. That's correct, Shen Shi answered simply, a type of multiplayer word game called script killing. I need some time. After the shopkeeper spoke, his figure began to become vague. This is a semi-offline mode. Shen Shi roughly guessed what he was going to do. After all, not everyone can be knowledgeable about antiques. In any era, experts are needed. Shen Shi didn't wait long before the shopkeeper reopened his eyes. These items are good, but just these alone differ greatly in value from what you're asking for. These are merely samples, Shen Shi asked indifferently. How many books do you want? In a flash, the opponent's battle armor body was filled with light. This was not the first time seeing such a scene. It was the same last time on the collector. Shen Shi could already confirm that this light was some kind of manifestation of primordial energy in this virtual world. Or a hint. However, the anticipated impact did not arrive, and upon closer inspection, although the opponent was clearly quite excited, Shen Shi could not feel even the slightest emotion. This level of control. Shen Shi couldn't help but give the other a few more glances. Of course, under the anonymous mode, he still remained totally motionless. Until the light emanating from the opponent gradually faded away, he spoke again. Are they all recording different contents? Of course, Shen Shi replied casually. That light representing primordial energy seemed to have signs of resurfacing. The opponent was clearly hesitating. After quite a while, he slowly reported a number. 400, I need 400 books. Despite his usual concise style, he emphasized it twice. Sufficient to witness the attraction of this script killing to him. Shen Shi didn't speak. He could be sure that this number definitely still had room for reduction. However, in his mind, he couldn't help but recall the history he had once seen. In that destiny without the time crystal's existence, humanity still struggled until 3,000 years later. Even continued to struggle. If you think it's too many, we can appropriately reduce some. The opponent seemed to misunderstand Shen Shi's silence and hesitantly offered to lower the price. Shen Shi chuckled softly. Just 400 books, he said, let's make some friends. He didn't know if future humans still have the concept of friends, but he believed that the other party could understand the meaning of this ancient saying. This time, it was the opponent's turn to be silent. After a long time, he spoke again. All right, he said, my name is Gong Chu. Accompanied by his words, a luminescence emerged in the void, revealing two characters. Surprisingly, it was the modern Eastern country's characters. No matter how unfamiliar he is with future world interpersonal relationships, Shen Shi could feel the importance given by the other party. He thought for a moment. Shen Shi, that's my name. Equally, two characters appeared in the void. He vaguely felt. Perhaps this relationship was the greatest gain in this transaction. Mr. Shen. From Gong Chu's revealed lips, these three ancient words were clearly spoken but quickly reverted to language Shen she couldn't understand, only hearing from translation. The services you require, our Dongfeng Corps will immediately begin designing, producing, and deliver to you in the shortest time with absolutely no information leakage. If you're not assured, you can wait until the transaction is completed or even after your battle is over before paying for the ancient books. This was probably the longest passage Shen Shi heard from the other party since entering the shop. looking at that freezing battle armor body, while listening to the evidently more respectful language. Shen Shi realized, yet again, the importance of cultural antiques in the future. This made him even more at ease. Since future humans need these histories and cultures destroyed in the future, what harm does it bring to act as a wealthy tycoon, throwing money extravagantly? Therefore, he declined the opponent's suggestion, simply stating calmly, "Since we're friends, there should be fundamental trust. These ancient books I can pay immediately. In addition, I need to transact some personal protection gear." Actually, simulated transformative material was already a quite potent protective gear. It can transform into various creatures, weapons. But it's not absolutely secure. Since he has chosen to appear before humanity, he must add an extra layer of protection. With billions of people globally, numerous interest groups, nobody knows whether someone might whimsically use a sniper rifle or even missile sneakily against him. Shen Shi would not gamble even if the probability is low. So personal protective gear is necessary. However, when Shen Shi asked this question, Gong Chu did not immediately respond, merely directing his armored-covered eyes towards Shen Shi with a neutral voice carrying a formal tone understandable without translation. "Sir's friendship is too precious, but I believe you won't regret letting our Dongfeng Corps become your friend in the future." Listening to this passage, and under the anonymous colorful luminescence, looking at the other's gaze, Shen Shi's view changed too. Now he couldn't determine whether such words came from sincerity, calculation, or other reasons. However, the attitude exhibited by the other party was already evident. Strengthening ties was not bad for him, seemingly. However, he couldn't reveal his anonymity. With his current shallow spiritual energy achievements, he could easily control everything in front of modern humans, but before such experts, he may still inadvertently reveal true emotions and information. Let the future take care of future matters. Shen Shi just said this at last, then shifted his gaze to the props on the counter, changing the topic. "Personal protective gear, any recommendations?" Seeing this, Gong Chu felt slightly disappointed internally. He had completely assumed that this guest must hail from a hidden Yuan clan, possessing likely humanity's last remaining historical inheritance, and all fiercely hiding themselves. The collector contacted earlier also shared this view. Actually, even the Yuan clan, being able to suddenly produce this number of ancient books is so exaggerated. Therefore, the mysterious guest in front is anything but simple. Most importantly, Gong Chu could feel that, contrary to typical perceptions of Yuan clan, this person seemed intent on releasing some inheritance. No matter the reason behind this, for people like them, it's a rare opportunity. Chapter 45, Lifeform Evolution Device. So, after careful consideration, Gong Chu spoke those words to express his attitude and attempt to further strengthen their relationship. The result was he being too hasty. After realizing this possibility, Gong Chu restrained his emotions, which was not a difficult task for him. However, his words grew increasingly respectful. "Sir, may I ask what type of personal protection you require?" "I am from the primordial sect," Shen Shi simply replied. Before coming here, he had naturally researched relevant knowledge. The technology of human civilization 3,000 years into the future partly comes from other civilizations within the Mute system, such as the simulation metamaterial he had traded last time, which he used with great effectiveness. Some were independently researched from beginning to end, although this part's proportion and level weren't high, merely representing a certain expectation. The largest portion, however, developed upon the inherited technology from the Warren fleet. This is technology focused on biomodification. It's not originally Warren's technology, but comes from the sea-level civilization that destroyed them. They cut off the Warren fleet's technology tree, rendering them a forever unprogressing, interstellar nomadic fleet, all the while cultivating and exploiting them until an internal conflict led to their destruction, later defeated by humans. It shows that human development on this path is fraught with difficulty. Yet it nonetheless became mainstream. Whether a collector, Gong Chu before him, or numerous ordinary people, all have undergone extensive bodily modifications, to an extent that scarcely resembles the human appearance. Far more exaggerated than what is called cyberpunk. However, even in such an environment, some individuals retain unique features. The primordial sect, maintaining the original human form, keeping the flesh and blood body. Therefore, after discovering this term, Shen Shi knew exactly how to respond. Understood, Gong Chu wasn't surprised. The majority of the Yuan clan are members of the primordial sect. He was slightly perplexed, though. Replacement modifications are mainstream for personal protection and even combat power, like his own body, which can support him in long-term survival and combat in space. With a complete set of external equipment, his combat strength is no less than a powerful warship. Primordial sect cannot compare in any way. Just bring out the best you have, Shen Shi vaguely guessed at the other's thoughts and said. After all, he wasn't facing a future environment. Even without such modifications, it should be sufficient in modern Blue Star. Please wait a moment. There is a piece of equipment that suits you very well, but it's not in my possession. Gong Chu seemed to have made a decision. After saying this, his form faded once again. This made Shen Shi internally delighted. Sounds like a good thing. Though waiting, he remained patient at the moment, especially while looking at the shop's abundance of futuristic world weapons and equipment, not feeling bored. However, the waiting time was slightly longer than he expected. As long as 3+ hours. When Gong Chu's form became substantial once more, the first word he spoke brightened Shen Shi's eyes. This is a top-tier carbon-based biological personal service device from the Dake civilization. Dake civilization. The civilization that destroyed the Warren civilization, just 21 nodes away from Blue Star, even continuously posing a threat to humanity's civilization 3,000 years into the future. Note that Dake civilization, even 1,000 years before modern society, was already rated at sea level within the Mude system. Such a top-tier device from this civilization. How was it acquired? Shen Shi barely restrained the urge to ask. He was already filled with anticipation. Sir, this device absolutely meets your needs, but one point, Gong Chu's tone slightly heavy. It mustn't be widely publicized. Better not inform anyone, as its origin carries some risk. I understand, Shen Shi simply said. He could guess that this thing's background wasn't simple, but so what? He's using it 3,000 years ago. Gong Chu didn't elaborate further. Before Shen Shi appeared a black square cube, approximately 1 meter in length, with an unusually smooth surface. But the next moment, the cube and entire shop expanded simultaneously, expanding again and again, until what lay before Shen Shi was a giant wall whose top was unseen and whose sides were invisible. Was the cube's surface not smooth, but rather proper hexagonal honeycomb-like openings. Inside, clearly visible, were tiny particles like powder, constantly moving in and out like they had life. Its full name is the carbon-based lifespan / evolution device. Gong Chu stood beside Shen Shi, spoke words containing a series of asterisks. This implies the terminology cannot translate, using modern Eastern country language. It must be technology modern society cannot touch. However, as when purchasing warships, manuals were simultaneously sent over. Shen Shi flipped directly to the function page. Glancing, his eyes shone increasingly. Adjustment, modification, reinforcement, support, integration, defense against physical energy and even consciousness attacks. Everything is there. Even not insignificantly, weak combat forms are present. According to Shen Shi's understanding, this thing is equivalent to something numerous times smaller than nanorobots, becoming a powerful species within the body, orderly, technically advanced, absolutely obedient, and commands a perfectly built strong body from the most minute level, and with auxiliary capabilities greatly enhancing various bodily strengths, equivalent to replacement modifications. Can this thing be compatible with personal terminals? Shen Shi couldn't help but ask. He actually already liked it, but after all, it's something used on oneself. He had to be careful. No hidden dangers allowed. Rest assured, to some extent, our technology essentially follows Dake civilization's route. While its manufacturing technology is incomprehensible, application poses no issue. Furthermore, Sir should understand how unique and powerful this market's personal terminals are, Gong Chu said. Shen Shi's thoughts slightly moved. He already knew the black market's personal terminal was extremely mysterious and powerful, just couldn't find a way to explore. Seeing Gong Chu mention the terminal, he asked casually, "What do you know about this place?" "Sir, you haven't been here long, have you?" Chapter 46, clearly visible winning rate. Shen Shi hesitated slightly, without denying it. Although he had only made a few trades, each time he was generous and coupled with his unique ancient language. it was not surprising that he was recognized as a newcomer. Moreover, this black market personal terminal is certainly magical, but it is not unique to him alone, unlike the time crystal which requires strict guarding. When he initially knew nothing, he even considered replacing the terminal. Everyone who first comes here is hesitant about its power and uniqueness, but its origins are not really a secret here. Gongchu evidently does not have the habit of withholding information and quickly explained. It comes from a relic of an unknown civilization, obtained by a human by chance around several hundred years ago, and was used to create this black market, making it the exclusive trump card of our human civilization. A relic of an unknown civilization, Shen Shi was startled. He knew that the black market accompanying the time crystal was absolutely not manufactured by human civilization 3,000 years into the future, and had made many guesses. But he never expected such an answer. What does this mean? Human luck. The cosmos is so vast, no one knows how many secrets it hides. Even the pasture master is equally insignificant under this starry sky. Gongchu suddenly recited as if chanting, ending with a low addition. Of course, we humans are even smaller. Shen Shi turned his head, gazing at this human who seemed like a robotic war god. At this moment, the glow representing primordial energy was not surging on the opponent's body. But for some reason, Shen Shi could seemingly feel the opponent's emotions. This suddenly made him perceive a certain understanding. Even after 3,000 years, humans in some aspects still remain unchanged. This understanding seemed to suddenly bring him closer to these future humans. Previously, Shen Shi, in fact, subconsciously regarded these future humans as somewhat comparable to aliens. After all, a lengthy 3,000 years separated them. It was a world very unfamiliar to Shen Shi. And the language they used, their living environment, and even their appearances, all had significant differences. But now this subconsciousness changed. You're right, Shen Shi slowly said, but no matter how small human civilization is to us, it's nearly everything. This was the first time Shen Shi discussed topics other than transactions with future humans. And Gongchu evidently froze. Following this, the light within his body surged again, this time radiating obvious joy. Sir is indeed different from the rest of the Yuan clan. This touched upon Shen Shi's knowledge-blind spot once again. He could only redirect the topic back to transactions. This device is quite expensive, isn't it? It is not my item but a guest's. Gongchu's light gradually calmed, yet his attitude grew more respectful. The guest originally did not want to trade under any circumstances. Gongchu had to present your ancient books to bring over the projection and description of this device. How much does he want? Shen Shi asked. Gongchu seemed to hesitate slightly but still truthfully said, 40 books. Haha, Shen Shi chuckled lightly. He now was not a naive blank slate about the value of ancient books. The simplest comparison could see. A planet fortress, designed and produced specifically for planetary defense, only required 400 books for the script kill, and that could be considered high-priced. And this device, only suitable for the defense enhancement by the primordial sect, dared to ask for 40 books. Even if it was rare enough, strong enough, but its origin was equally troublesome for ordinary people. That's definitely extortion. I'll give you 40 books, Shen Shi said to Gongchu, but you can't give all 40 to him. However much you can negotiate down, the remainder is yours. Shen Shi did not care about these so-called ancient books. 40 books, even thousands of books, meant nothing to him. But he couldn't casually open this door. He could afford to be generous, but he couldn't allow extortion. Otherwise, once the news spread, subsequent trades would surely bring many troubles. Gongchu obviously understood Shen Shi's meaning, and the half-exposed face showed undisguised joy. Leave it to Gongchu, I surely won't let you down. If he were a modern person, he might pat his chest to guarantee it. Shen Shi simply replied. Until then, both principal objectives of this black market visit had been completely fulfilled, and the traded items were much better than his original expectations, finally relaxing Shen Shi's mood considerably. He did not rush to leave. Instead, he continued to choose and pick in this store, spending 10 script kills in big-hand trades and acquiring many good items, and Gongchu once again promised to hurry the design and production of the planet fortress, completing the trade. He even personally saw Shen Shi out of the store, causing some people on the street to turn their heads. It should be known that Gongchu was famous for his aloofness among all shop owners in the black market, and he indeed had the qualification. The master of the Dongfeng Corps, #1 in security service. Strength, wealth, status, everything is top tier within civilization. But such a strong person actually had such a warm, kind scene. Who exactly was this anonymous person? In a short time, the news of a mysterious new guest in the black market spread rapidly within this not-so-large special circle. Shen Shi was unaware of this situation. But even if he knew, he wouldn't care since, as long as the value of antique is here, gaining fame is inevitable sooner or later. At this moment, his consciousness had returned entirely to his body, and the time crystal on the back of his hand, covered by simulated deforming material, gradually dissipated. Even inside his warship, he still maintained the most basic vigilance. In summarizing this time's hugely successful trade, he couldn't help but feel happy. Ever since he learned about the future of the alien invasion 3 years later, this matter had become a looming mountain in his heart. Whether preparing for escape or deciding to try changing human destiny, this stone was firmly pressing in his heart. But now, having acquired a feasible plan and a visible win rate, this stone finally shifted considerably. He felt a sense of finally being able to relax. However, Shen Shi also understood that now was not yet the time for true victory. Plans, after all, are plans, and Gong Chu's reminder before he left was still echoing in his ears. If that fleet indeed locks onto the planet where Sir is, they will definitely first send a scout fleet to disrupt the construction of the planet fortress and relay intelligence back to the main fleet, causing unpredictable impacts on the win rate. Chapter 47. Chapter 47. Simply cultivation through technology. Reconnaissance unit. Shen Shi indeed hadn't given much thought to this possibility. In hindsight, assuming the enemy would arrive in 3 years was rather optimistic. When navigating a large fleet through the cosmos, reconnaissance units, navigation teams, and exploration squads seem essential. After all, who knows when you might suddenly encounter some crisis? Even from the perspective of scouting the enemy's technological advancement, it's absolutely necessary. For forces lacking sufficient teleportation technology, interstellar travel could take hundreds of years. During that time, if there's a period of significant technological development, it would be enough for a civilization to progress from a primordial feudal society to an initial space fleet. However, having come this far, there's no reason to be afraid. Shen Shi slightly clenched his fist. His personality was indeed cautious or perhaps introspective, but the current situation is much better than it initially was, and compared to the original future, it's incomparable. If this doesn't inspire confidence, even he would look down on himself. Then Shen Shi opened the information database again. He tried to collect all the information related to the Warren fleet, not wanting to miss any detail. The ancestors were right. Knowing yourself and your enemy is the way to win 100 battles. A day passed immersed in this eager learning. After consuming the refreshing medicine produced on the ship once more, Shen Shi finally received a message from Gong Chu. That carbon-based life evolution device has been secured. The final agreed price is 18 ancient books for murder mystery scripts. Gong Chu bargained down more than half, yet still seemed to want to return the bargain books to Shen Shi. But Shen Shi directly refused. What I've said I won't take back. After a long pause, Gong Chu sent a message. Thank you very much. But Shen Shi had no intention of saying anything else. His full attention was now on the black cube before him. Only by physically interacting with it could he feel some sensations that are difficult to perceive in the virtual world. Namely smoothness. Incredibly smooth. Shen Shi knew very well that even with the most advanced electron microscopes, it might be impossible to discover the hexagonal openings beneath this smooth surface. And this is merely the carrier of this device. Or the box. Those ultramicroscopic superparticles are the true life evolution device. This is also a product of microscopic technology development, far more advanced than realistic transmutable materials. Shen Shi sighed in admiration. Realistic transmutable materials already seemed miraculous to him. However, after gaining some understanding, he realized the limitations of these transmutable materials. Its name, after all, includes the word realistic. Whether it's chemical reactions or energy reactions, essentially, it's a simulation with parameters that can even be controlled. So, the original idea of using it for experimental research is fundamentally unfeasible. In low-end fields where correct parameters are fully input, there might not be issues, but once it involves fields beyond its simulated scope, transmutable simulation becomes impossible. Take this device before him, or even cosmic battleships and jump engines. These are all things that realistic transmutable materials can't simulate. Everything that appears all-powerful becomes laughable once some of the mystery is unveiled. As Shen Shi lamented, he wasn't idle. He acquired full permissions for the device according to the protocol. As Gong Chu mentioned, the personal terminal from the black market is incredibly powerful. Even this sea-level civilization's pinnacle product from 3,000 years later has no resistance in front of the terminal, easily controlled and cracked. No wonder its previous owner dared to keep it. With a sense of impatient eagerness, Shen Shi placed his hand on the cube. In an instant, a black, liquid-like substance continuously spread from the cube to his hand, then gradually vanished. This scene reminded Shen Shi of the sci-fi movie Venom, released a few years ago. There is indeed some resemblance. But this substance is not a life form, and there's no voice disobeying commands, continuously buzzing in his ear. Until the liquid completely disappears, and the unboxing is complete, Shen Shi moved his body but felt no noticeable change. Yet the scanning had begun. Let me see. Shen Shi's eyes displayed the new loading interface of the personal terminal. There are so many issues: appendix, wisdom teeth. Are these the defects brought by incomplete human evolution? Change them all: bones, muscles. No need for skin to become too good. Genes. I actually have an 80% liver cancer rate. Oh, probabilities after 80 years old, that's all right then. For modern people, the human body harbors too many unknowns. It's like a perpetually mysterious treasure chest. Even seemingly advanced modern medicine explores this treasure chest to a very small extent. And even more so, consciousness possesses the incredibly mysterious, primordial energy within the cosmos. But for Shen Shi now, this treasure chest is being frantically opened. From now on, he doesn't need to exercise to have strong bones and muscles. He can eat wildly without worrying about obesity, and every organ in his body will become perfect and powerful, forever free from sub-health conditions. Moreover, any part damaged can heal quickly. Even if severed limbs pose no problem, even if beheaded, the brain remains functioning temporarily, consciousness intact. Plus, numerous supportive functions completely surpass the essence of carbon-based life. Just the eyes alone can become a powerful entity, incorporating telescopes, microscopes, and X-ray vision into one. And ears can detect the tiniest sound waves that any life form could never perceive, even clearly discerning radio waves floating in the air. He'll never worry about drowning, nor fear electric shocks, cold, heat, or other natural dangers. An invisible force field envelops his entire body, ensuring safety while allowing him a certain degree of flight. Crucially, with a thought, the pitch-black liquid surged from his body, rapidly morphing into a 2-meter-high black armor. Yes, it comes with auxiliary external armor. This is why it, as a primordial sect device, can rival some replacement devices in combat power. This is no longer just an evolution device, it's practically tech cultivation, Shen Shi exclaimed excitedly and genuinely. When technology reaches a certain level, how is it any different from mythology? Chapter 48, Extremely Important Logic. Of course, Shen Shi did not push the rapid evolution and transformation of his body, as he needed some time to adapt. Besides, he did not plan for his appearance to change drastically at once, as both he and those around him would not be able to adapt. But nonetheless, this not only solved security problems but also issues related to longevity, health, and a whole range of other concerns. However, once the excitement subsided, Shen Shi sat in the captain's room, feeling the slow changes beginning in his body, and he felt a particular sense of awe. This ability could easily create a powerful character, even in a blockbuster movie, including the previous simulated transformative matter. For an ordinary person in human civilization, acquiring just one of these would be incredibly powerful, enough to stir up trouble within human civilization, even recklessly, with no one able to challenge them. This is the gap between civilizations. A gap where even a regular individual from a powerful civilization could easily conquer an entire weaker civilization. Can humanity truly catch up? Shen Shi experienced a moment of uncertainty. But it was just a moment. Even if we can't catch up, we must strive to, and we shouldn't stop. He once again opened the information database, learn, grow, and if nothing else, cheat. If I can become this strong, others can too. An area Shen Shi himself had yet to consciously realize. He was indeed growing rapidly. This time, he stayed on the spaceship for a full 3 days. Then he returned to High City. When he reappeared from the hotel, there had been earth-shattering changes in places unnoticed by ordinary people. Hidden beneath a loose shirt was a body adorned with distinct, firm, and beautifully strong muscles. The slight nearsightedness had vanished without a trace, and whenever he wished, he could clearly see everything within his visual range. The slowly increasing power within his body gave him an unprecedented, almost gravity-free sense of ease, as if a gentle leap could easily break world records. And all of this is only just the beginning of evolution. Mom's stomach isn't too good. I should find a time to go back and solve that. As for my younger brother, considering his energy shouldn't be too vibrant. There are also my aunt and 2 aunts who have helped the family a lot over the years. Uncle's legs are an old problem. Shen Shi thought about his family. 6 years ago, after his father's accident, the family's circumstances plummeted, and among the relatives, he knew who genuinely cared for them, who was indifferent and selfish, and even those who sought to take advantage of the orphans and widowed mother. Although he no longer wished to avoid these things now, he still cared about what needed to be cared for. More than 10 days ago, he had already sent some money back and even allocated a portion of the simulated transformative matter to protect his family's safety. But today's situation isn't the same as before. Shen Shi knew he was about to be in a position of being watched by everyone, and his family's safety couldn't be overly careless. Thus, in the last transaction, he deliberately got some small items prepared specifically for his family and friends, including AI Zinner. When he thought of AI Zinner, Shen Shi's face showed a hint of a smile. Regarding AI Zinner, initially, there was a bit of old first love feelings at play, but over time he determined he still cared about this girl, and that was enough. This emotion might be the best proof that he still remained himself. To High City Music Academy. Shen Shi sat in his luxury car, instructing his simulated secretary, and upon scanning, he realized all surveillance devices in the car were gone, and those who used to tail him had all disappeared. Quite efficient. The smile on Shen Shi's lips widened slightly. It wasn't in vain to have given 3 days. And at this time, in a completely sealed room in High City, a highly classified meeting was underway. The person sitting in the leading position was Tao De, who Shen Shi had met before. In front of him, the members participating in this meeting appeared to be varied. There were middle-aged individuals with a strong military vibe, scholarly figures wearing glasses who seemed rather wooden, and others full of charisma looking like elites from various fields, gathered together solely for one person's existence. And that was the silhouette on the projection. Shen Shi. So this is our special relationship management department's first high-level meeting. From now on, we will be colleagues working together for the long term, so be prudent when necessary but don't be overly constrained when relaxing, Tao De began, then glanced at a bespectacled middle-aged man sitting on his left and said, Liang Xin, I've read the report submitted by your analysis group. So, you believe that everything the target individual has told us is completely true. Although he had personally experienced everything, even having emotional outbursts fueled by Shen Shi's information while on the spaceship. However, upon return, they couldn't possibly conduct no analysis whatsoever and directly believe everything Shen Shi said without question. Ultimately, this case is too crucial. It might very well be a turning point in the destiny of all humanity. So after creating this special department, the first task was to try to confirm Shen Shi's identity while on Blue Star, and the second was to conduct a comprehensive analysis of the existing information. The group led by Liang Xin comprised elite experts selected nationwide from psychology, criminal investigation, logic, sociology, and various other disciplines. Such a lineup was unprecedented. But the target individual absolutely warranted such a lineup, and everything he had said was even more deserving. Not a single shred of carelessness could be afforded. To put it bluntly, in events at this level, even humanity's entire effort would be exceedingly limited, emphasizing the necessity of maximum effort in realms where feasible. It's not that we believe. The bespectacled middle-aged man named Liang Xin raised his hand to adjust his glasses and said solemnly, but at this moment, we must believe. Let's hear it in front of everyone. Tao De had actually read the report already. This inquiry was intended for the others. In fact, this matter doesn't require much analysis. Just three simple but extremely important logical points need to be understood. Liang Xin raised three fingers. First, the target possesses powerful abilities that we cannot comprehend, analyze, or assess. Second, assuming the target's claims are false, these lies would be effortlessly exposed, with a successful loan implying deliverance of something, especially the crucial alien invasion aspect, which can be verified in a mere 3 years. Third, we cannot afford the consequences potentially stemming from disbelief. Chapter 49. Chapter 49. We are his friends. The others nodded slightly. These 3 points are indeed clear and extremely important logic. They have already seen the relevant confidential files and know most of the current intelligence, including various elite analyses. The first point, not to mention the high probability of an interstellar power behind Shen Shi. Just the things Shen Shi has already shown are extraordinary. In the I'm Back event, the strong electronic intrusion capabilities it demonstrated made experts believe that it even has the power to paralyze all global communication networks in an instant, from satellite communications to the most primitive radio communications, causing human civilization to regress overnight from the information age to an era of paper letters 200 years ago. Not to mention the powerful stealth capabilities exhibited by that spaceship. Invisible, uncatchable, these 2 points are very critical. Once a military conflict occurs, if they want to leave, they can leave, and they are already invincible. And no one believes that such a spaceship in the cosmos would be without weapon systems. Too much is unknown. As for the second point, it's also simple and clear. If the alien invasion is assumed to be a lie, then there are countless better plans to replace this lie to achieve the same purpose. There is no need to give just 3 years' time, and there is no need to mention something like loans, because the purpose of loans is to support them, to invest in them, not to take from them. So based on the premise that the alien invasion is most likely real information, the third point becomes particularly important. If we choose not to believe, to question, once Shen Shi perceives this and becomes dissatisfied, or even directly leaves the blue star, then the entire human race cannot bear this cost. In the end, what Shen Shi said is basically fact. Even the background identity and loans, as the fictitious parts, are just another way of saying trading through time crystal with the future. So there is not much that can be questioned. Does everyone understand? Tauda looked at the others. So, I'm now going to set the tone for the work ahead. Strengthen connections, never offend, establish friendship, and fight for benefits. Everyone nodded in agreement. Some people looked at Shen Shi on the screen, with a hint of fanaticism in their eyes. Alien civilization, alien spaceship, alien technology. This is undoubtedly a crisis sweeping all of humanity, but if we can safely get through it, it will also become an unprecedented opportunity in human history. Liang Xin, you continue. Tauda looked at Liang Xin again. Let everyone have a clearer understanding of Mr. Shen. Okay? Liang Xin nodded, stood up with the document. Everyone knows, based on what Mr. Shen himself said, that when he left Blue Star, there has always been an android living his life as an ordinary person. Therefore, the specific time of departure is unknown, but the approximate time can be speculated to be around the college entrance exam, or it might have been during that summer vacation. It's because of AI Zinner, isn't it? Someone interjected. They met in high school. That's right. Liang Xin nodded at the notebook in front of him, and a photo instantly appeared on the screen. It was a picture of Shen Shi holding AI Zinner's hand, standing in front of a luxury car, surrounded by a group of bodyguards and students. It was a scene from that day. On the 12th of May, which is 14 days ago, more than 300 million suddenly appeared in Mr. Shen's bank account. According to investigations, all the money came from foreign transactions of virtual currency. On the same day, he went on a shopping spree and drove a luxury car to the scene where a fourth-year student in the piano department of High City Music Academy, who was likely his first love and a high school classmate named AI Zinner, was confessed to. You've all seen what happened that day. What are your thoughts on Mr. Shen's character exhibited back then? Arrogant, domineering, someone immediately said. Yes, it's easy to see. Liang Xin nodded, then emphasized. Besides that, there was also a hesitation, an indecision, even a noticeable irritability that wasn't well concealed. The crowd exchanged glances. They were not experts in psychology, but Liang Xin was, and his team surely conducted a thorough, comprehensive analysis of the video back then. I can tell you with certainty, back then, he was indeed hesitating over something. His ostentatious demeanor was more of an outlet for irritation, and based on our understanding, what he was hesitating over was very likely whether or not to stay and help humanity. This analysis wasn't wrong, because indeed, at that time, Shen Shi was agitated and hesitant over that matter. Otherwise, he might not have rushed to raise money and spend. Subconsciously, there was actually a thought of there won't be many days left to enjoy. And Liang Xin's words also brought silence to the meeting, until someone dryly said, "So, the entire human race unknowingly walked on the brink of life and death. Shen Shi chooses to stay and help humans, then there is still a glimmer of hope. If he chooses to leave, then 3 years later is the end of humanity. Isn't that the life and death line of the entire human race?" When he was on the spaceship, he also showed a similar attitude. Tao De interjected at this point. He also looked at the young man in the projection before him and said solemnly, "On the spaceship, we saw him, and he was completely different from the him in the video. On the spaceship he was cold, mysterious, calm, with hardly any emotional expression. We believe these are two different states." Liang Xin continued. "This is not uncommon. Some people are in a completely different state when at work and in private, and Mr. Shen is likely similar. That's why when he appeared in front of AI Zinner, he showed more vivid emotions, but when facing representatives from various countries, he was more indifferent. Some people were thoughtful. This is indeed not hard to understand. However, they were pondering whether this information would be helpful to their work going forward. Then if we establish contact with him in a private state, would it be better? Someone couldn't help but say. This is precisely what I want to emphasize." Liang Xin suddenly raised his tone. "We don't know what he experienced in those years in the interstellar, how much he changed. But after he returned to human society, he still showed clear emotions, which is the best proof that he is still human. Perhaps it is also the main reason he decided to stay and help humanity. Therefore, my suggestion is, during the contact process, focus on emotions, try to establish a personal friendship with him, and strengthen his recognition and even bond with humanity, with the Eastern country and with us. Even if it cannot be achieved, at least make him understand that we are his friends, compatriots, not strangers, let alone enemies."